And right over here we have the Country Crafts and Sports Store, formerly known as the Stanley Movie Theater, named for Stanley Leahy. He opened the theater up in 1937. And guess how much he charged guests to see double features back in those days?
5 cents.
Bit more than that, but you're close.
10.
Yep, 10 cents, that's all. How times have changed, right? Now you're selling at $20 for a single feature, minus popcorn. Now the theater kept on going to the 70s, when it became first a regular stage theater and later a craft store called Bonnie's. But in the 80s it became a set for a famous baseball movie. Anyone know what that movie was?
Field of Dreams?
That's the one, Field of Dreams. Now speaking of former funeral homes, right up here we have the Galena Brewing Company. Yeah, the Brewing Company used to be a funeral home, and they ran there for 40 years before moving in 2007. Now, while they were there, they averaged around 70 funerals a year or so, which comes out to about 3,300 spirits all told. So if you go there and ask the employees if they have any spirits, they will tell you, why, yes, of course they do. But they will only mention Jose Cuervo, Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, and occasionally a splash of Captain Morgan. Household names, right? Right around the corner, we'll be pulling up into Bench Street. Now, there's a house there that was once owned by a man called Bernie Eberhardt. Now, Bernie Eberhardt's favorite thing to do was to sit on his back porch and read all day. But eventually he grew old, had to sell his home, and he passed away soon after. Now, his house came to a young couple, and for a while they had their old mother living with them. And so one day, a neighbor came by with a book of old photos. And as they were looking through them, the mother saw the picture of Bernie Eberhardt. And she recognized him at once. Oh, I know that guy. Oh, really? Said the kids. What happened? Did you go to school with him or something? No, I saw him 5 minutes ago. What? Yeah, he was reading on the back porch. Well, you and ghosts, they do like to come back to things that they can relate to, or places that they lived in life, and I guess Bernie Eberhardt was no exception. Oh well, at least not a threatening ghost, that's the good news. That's what house did it happen at? Right over here. House 105 with the white columns. Right at the end of the street. There it is. Bernie Eberhardt's old place. And right over here we have the History Museum. Has anybody been there yet? Well, it is a great place to visit, but I ought to warn you, it's home to so many ghosts that it inspired the book Ghosts of Galena. Luckily, many of the ghosts there behave themselves, but there's always that one bad apple who spoils the bunch. And the bad apple over there is apparently a social misfit and alcohol fan. Not a good mix, as we learned one night during a formal dinner. Now, the host hired servers to walk around with trays of wine and champagne to serve the guests. When the last waitress got her tray, she was pushed from behind. Her tray went flying, and the guests ended up wearing their drinks. Luckily, nobody blamed the waitress. They could tell she had been pushed. But whatever pushed her was invisible, so all we know about the ghost is why he did what he did. Ghosts cannot eat or drink anything in the afterlife. So it seems this ghost decided, if I can't enjoy that wine, you can't either. So at the museum, we'll look to the wise. Wear washable clothing and avoid the wine, just in case. Did you know that in the 19th century, Galena was home to not 1, but 7 different breweries? It's true. And what's more, according to the reports, approximately half the beer produced in Galena stayed in Galena. That is a lot of beer. And speaking of a lot of beer, who here has heard of Red Stripe beer? There's his birthplace right over there. That's the former Fulton Brewery. Now, the Fulton Brewmaster wished to make a brew that could rival the famous, popular Milwaukee brand. And lo and behold, with Red Stripe, he succeeded wildly. In fact, the Fulton became one of the country's biggest and best breweries in no time at all. But sadly, during Prohibition, they sold the brew to British investors, who believed they could sell more beer by claiming it came up from dinky little Galena, but a foreign land. And they chose Jamaica, one of their colonies at the time. There you have it. Everyone now believes that Red Stripe is Jamaican.
Ooh, look at the creepy doll. Creepy doll.
It's one of the dolls.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Ryan Mansion. Now, the Ryan Mansion story begins with, of course, James Ryan. Now, he began to build his house in 1876, and they finished it just 2 years later in 1878. Not bad for a 9,000 square foot mansion with 4 floors, right?
Yeah.
On the first floor alone, it has 2 dining rooms, 2 parlors, a kitchen, a living room, and a library. The second floor has more parlors and 7 bedrooms. The third floor has 2 more bedrooms, and the rest is a 2,000 square foot ballroom with 10-foot high ceilings. And the top floor, the 4th floor, is a scenic overview of the city. Now, our tour begins here in the main hallway, with the main feature of the hallway, this red door. This door alone is proof that James was loaded. First of all, there's only 1 door in a set of 2. This door is here, but its twin is above it on the 2nd floor. Now, both doors were handmade in Czechoslovakia in the 19th century, and they set James back $40,000. Victorian money. So today they're literally $1 million doors at least, but why are they so expensive? Well, do you see this red glass? Well, even today red glass is quite expensive, but this is a special kind of glass called ruby glass. It's made with gold dust. In fact, if you look at the white etching, you'll see flickers of the gold. Can everyone see it?
I know.
Yeah, look at the curved edges, the flowers, the leaves, and the florets. Can everyone see it?
A little bit.
It's a long lost art, everyone. Glass isn't made like that anymore, red or otherwise. But you have to wonder, why is the red glass in the house's center where nobody can see it? Especially when the door everyone can see is boring old white. Any idea why that is? Well, during the summer and winter solstices, the sun would shine at a perfect angle and the light would just stream through the red glass into the whole hall beyond it bright red. The basis thought it brought in new life and new energy every solstice. In fact, it does that to this day. At 5 a.m. it is. And through the doorway over here, we have one of the 2 dining rooms. From its white fireplace, we can infer that this was the grand dining room, where the Ryans ate their dinner and held parties, as opposed to the lesser dining room to the right, where they would eat breakfast, lunch, and other informal meals. Both rooms feature parquet flooring, made from 7 different kinds of wood. And the flooring is original. That is where the rope is up. It's too old for us to walk on. But if you brought cameras, here's where you want to get them out. The Ryan family lived in a time when to be called middle class meant you had to have at least 2 servants working for you. The richer you were, the more servants you had to employ. Well, the Ryan family employed 23 for the house alone. Not to mention 100 more for the rest of their estate. Billionaires, what can I say? Now, one of the house servants was a young serving boy, and one day he was over in the dining room, reaching for a tray on a very high shelf. Well, the tray fell and smashed in the poor kid's head. Killed him instantly. But in the afterlife, he likes to make little blue and green orbs in people's cameras, photos, and videos. So if you guys brought cameras, go ahead. You might get lucky. And if not, then feel free to join me over here in the parlors. Pardon me? Welcome everyone to the parlors. It's back from the Ryans' day. Back then, the gentlemen and the ladies spent a lot of their time apart, but there were some exceptions, like dinner when you got together to eat, age, gender, big deal. But when dinner was over, it was back to normal. Men in one room, women in another. In fact, it was further divided up by age group, and that's where the parlors come in. Now we're standing in the women's parlor where the older, married women would go. But if you were not old or married, you had another choice. You'd go to the children's parlor instead. And there you would talk, play games, play music, and hopefully find a suitable future spouse, but always under the watchful eye of your elder peers. A young couple would not be allowed to be alone together until well into their engagement. Which does leave one question: where do the men go? Well, I'll show you. Yes, we're using a spirit box here.
Okay, let's hear a lot of cool noise. I know it's all about.
Okay. Anybody else want some chairs? We got about 3 more. You guys are sure? Okay. Well, the men would come here to the library, and this is where they would talk, smoke, joke, business work and politics, and of course, keep in mind the goings-on over in the children's parlor. But that could be a bit of a challenge when there was a wall dividing up the rooms, don't you think? But the Ryans found their ways around these little problems, including large mirrors. Now, large mirrors were a staple of Victorian homes. They were hung up with many purposes in mind, but the main one was spying on the rest of the house. And that purpose lived on long after the Ryan family's presence in the house did. Take what happened 12 years ago, for example, when the house was standing empty for a change. Now, the realtors in the area thought it a shame for this beautiful mansion to go unused. So they decided to change that by organizing a showing for their clients to have a look around. So the day of the showing arrived, and the first person on the scene was, of course, the realtor for the event. She gave the house a bit of a once-over, and when she was satisfied, she would return to the main hallway to wait for the clients beneath the staircase. But as she sat there, she saw something rather odd go through the corner of her eye. So she went to have a look in the front hall mirror to figure out what that was. And she saw a man in a black Victorian suit right behind her, glowering. The realtor ran out screaming her head off, and the house didn't get sold that day. So they tried again a couple weeks later with a new realtor, of course, and he too came before what the clients did. But he spent that time on the second floor. Apparently one of the bedrooms there was a mess, and he wanted to clean it up before anyone saw it. Well, the first thing you see in this room is a large wooden bureau with a small gilt-framed photo on top. The realtor walked in, the photo lifted itself from the bureau, hovered in the air for a moment, then threw itself at the realtor's head. He ran away too. And it was the same story over and over again for the following 4 years. And one day the realtor got some disturbing news. Either sell this house now or we're tearing it down. One of the realtors thought to himself, okay, what is going on here? We can't even get our clients before we get kicked out. What's going on? So we looked through the list of realtors trying to see if there's some sort of common characteristic. There wasn't one. So the realtor went back to the drawing board and drew up a list of clients. And there he found his connection. The clients were all bed and breakfast owners. Well, that would do it. This house has a bad track record as a hotel. They tried to turn it into a bed and breakfast many times, but every time within the year the bank owned it again. The realtor does just not stand for it. So the realtor saw this and thought to himself, okay, if that's what's going on, will I have more luck with a different kind of client? So, just as they were out, he brought in a family for a showing instead. The family walked in through the front door, and all that happened to them was every door in the house opened up for them on its own. And so the family thought, hey, great, cool, the ghosts want us here. So they've been here ever since. Except for one person, the older son. Or as I call him, Mr. Ghost Magnet. Well, that's a very accurate name. And when the boy moved in, he was a teenager, and as such, he was given a whole wing of the house to himself. What a deal, right? Well, not for him, it wasn't. All night after he moved in, something kept him awake by pounding on the door. And as the kid tossed and turned trying to find a comfortable place where he could avoid the noise, he saw the door handle twisting and shaking, like there was somebody trying to get in from the hallway. And when the boy saw this, he lost patience. He left his bed, went to the door, and yelled out to the hallway, hey, whoever's out here, get lost! But there was nobody to get lost. Everything had just gone completely still. No footsteps, nothing. So the boy was satisfied at this point, and back to bed he went. He got tucked in, hunkered down, but the minute his eyes closed, the ruckus started up all over again. And this happened to him every night he went to sleep in this house. That's a time span measured in years. So poor kid was losing a lot of sleep and losing a lot of patience. But the last straw came when he was 17 years old. One night he woke up at 3 a.m. and saw a Civil War soldier at the foot of his bed staring at him. Long story short, the boy's in college now and he avoids the mansion like a plague. What a pity. It was good for business, but you can't force the kid to stay, I guess. Now the question here is, who was that Civil War soldier anyways? Well, our best bet is that he was one of James Ryan's sons. And from their ages during the Civil War, there's only one that it could be, the eldest surviving Ryan child, Charles Ryan. Now, Charles may have been the eldest and the surviving child, but he wasn't the firstborn. That was Willie Ryan. But alas, poor Willie, dead at the age of 3. You think he had it bad? Pity the young daughter, Alice Ryan, dead at 6 months. And they're the two we know died young. There may have been a few others as well. But either way, the Ryans beat the odds. Over half of their kids made it to adulthood. But then again, those odds were their favorites to begin with. After all, James had 10 kids. And all by the same lady, too. Poor Mrs. Catherine Ryan. Ouch. Popping out one kid per 2 years over a 20-year span. Yeah, I know, I couldn't do it, but she certainly did. And what's more, she survived the ordeal by 13 years. But finally, in 1888, she passed away in the room above our heads at the ripe old age of 56. Not bad. 10 kids in the 19th century, not bad. I wouldn't call it old, but considering the circumstances, could have been worse. And James didn't fare much better. He followed her to the grave 2 years afterwards, and when he died, his kids who were living here with him took off. And they took a lot of furnishings away with them, except for a couple pieces. For example, the red velvety seating in the bay windows is all original. So is the bookcase, and so is the piano. And the piano is one of our most haunted artifacts in the whole entire house. Legend states the Ryan family had a young serving boy. And when the Ryan family went off to church on Sunday, he snuck in here and taught us how to play music on the piano. He was surprisingly good and moved from simple playing music to composing it. Now they say that he began to write his own sheet music to hide all around the house. Now what became of the sheet music, we don't know. We've been looking, no sign of it. But we do know where the boy ended up. We think his spirit is now lashed to the piano for good. So, one more reason for hunting ghosts in this room, don't you think? If the ghost touches the REM pod, here's what the REM pod will do. The problem is that human do the exact same thing with a lot less effort, so I'll put it on the ground. We will leave it alone and see what happens. At the talk with the ghost, and not be stuck with yes and no questions, I'd recommend using this. Does anyone know what this is?
Spirit box.
Exactly, an SP7 spirit box to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all it really is a radio scanner. And when it's on, it scans through hundreds of radio stations per millisecond. In theory, the ghosts step into the stations and talk with us, which begs the question, are we talking to a radio or to a ghost? It's all in the syllables. You can only spit out one syllable to agree with array. Radio, ghost, who knows? But if it spits out 2 or more syllables, it's definitely a ghost. Radios can't do that. Now, if it is a ghost, you'll know by its voice if it is a man, a woman, or a child. That's the easy part. The hard part is trying to figure out what the ghost is saying. So I'll turn this on. We will see if we can get anyone and see if they want to talk with us. Now go ahead, ask the ghost questions too. They're very bored of talking to me all the time. But with that being said, it's going to be a bit louder first, so please bear with me. Ready, everybody?
Who is the president right now? Can you tell me what year this is?
What is your name?
Oh, I heard something.
Can you make the REM pod on the floor go off? Okay.
No idea.
Will you make it go off, though? That's the big question.
Can you make this go to red?
Do you know the cat's name?
Would you like to play the piano for us?
How old are you?
5. Can we see that?
I heard something.
I heard something, I couldn't tell them. What state are we in?
What's your favorite color? What day is it?
How many kids did you have again?
Maybe that might be one.
Did you hear a piano? I think
I think it was somebody's cell phone.
Oh,
maybe?
okay.
Yeah, it did sound like a piano.
Do you want the 3 of us to sit down with everybody else?
Can I play your piano?
Who won the Civil War?
Did you have slaves in this house? I'd really like to see that REM pod light up on the floor. If you can make that happen, that'd be really cool. Do you want us to leave? That's a bad choice of wallpaper. Do you agree? I was joking.
I say that now.
Are you cold?
Which room is your favorite room in the house? I'm gonna go in the ladies' parlor. Is that okay? I'm going in. I'm in.
Who's in the picture on the table?
Kitty cat. You're very quiet today. You don't want to talk with us?
Do you want to play chess?
What room is the Xbox in?
In the room with the gold.